So what makes Arc Lash fun? The insane cooldown reduction, proccing all the random abilities, or the massive number of numbers. All of these look pretty awesome. And the best part, the build doesn't need any specific legendary aspects to come online, at least according to the guide. So I got into it with the starter version because I don't have any gear for this. So the basics of this build is that you have 4 utility skills for survival, your ultimate, and then your Arc Lash. And the synergy is that you pop your ultimate, you do a whole bunch of damage, and then you use your Arc Lash to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate. Now this did not go that well for me. You feel powerful for every minute, but Arc Lash doesn't do nearly enough to reduce the cooldown in any meaningful way. And honestly, I don't even recommend this for leveling. So I went back to the guide, and I tried to understand what I really needed. And it was telling me critical strike chance and cooldown reduction is what I need. And also, looking through the guide, it said that I had the best in slot boots. And I was like, oh yeah, that'll help me with my crit. So I tried to put them on and see how much critical strike chance I would get, but it actually lowered the critical strike chance that I got. I was starting to wonder how I could do this if I didn't have the stats, but then I realized that I was actually level 70. And the guide says that I can do the burner version of the build once you approach level 70. And how did this work out? This worked out way better. So now, the build goes like this. You pop your ultimate, you do a bunch of damage. Then, your Arc Lash and your Crackling Energy will both contribute to reducing the cooldown of your ultimate. And your Arc Lash will now proc Ball Lightnings, which also make Crackling Energies, that will contribute to the cooldown reduction. If you're hitting a lot of mobs, this will work really good. You just need to make sure that you have your Crackling Energy, especially when you have your ultimate active, otherwise you waste the charges. And with this version of the build, it let me do pretty much all the content just okay. There was some content that kept killing me, and I even actually failed a Nightmare Dungeon because I was dying so much, even with the 4 defensive skills. I guess I just played in a way where I just didn't want any cooldowns on my abilities, even though I didn't actually have the gear for that. Even in the Helltide, I died a couple times, but I was successful enough to get some of the mystery chests that were still out there, so that's no problem. For this Arc Lash build, you need to commit to this 100%, because suboptimal gear is really punishing on the fun aspects of the build. No. That note in the guide about not needing any legendaries, I think they say that because the legendaries only ease the pain of being on cooldown, but the stats are definitely the ones that solve the issue of being on cooldown. I think there are some legendaries that you can add that'll help ease the pain about being on cooldown that the guide doesn't recommend, like the one that procs abilities when your unstable currents is off cooldown. That helped a little bit, but it's not a game changer. Unfortunately, I couldn't build up my character to get to the point where I had no cooldown at all on anything and you just pop unstable currents all the time because I simply just didn't have the gear. I was still missing a significant amount of cooldown reduction, and I needed a little bit more crit too, from 30% to 50%. Later, I figured out that the boots actually give you the crit through a buff that's just not active in town. When I saw it, I was like, oh sweet. But still didn't get me 50%. And honestly, I think it'll take a significant amount of farming to get to that point. But when you do get to that point, Arc Lash would be pretty freaking sweet. I think I'll save up a set of side gear so that way I can change this build to see its full glory. Because that seems really fun.